Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to today's edition of the Student Athlete Interview Initiative. My name is Emily Schmidt, and I'm here today with Suzanne Dannheim. She graduated from GW this past May. She majored in finance with a minor in French and was also a decorated member of the cross country and track team. She is a superstar in all areas, so we're super happy to have her with us today. So Suzanne, I'm just wondering if you could kind of talk me about how you decided to major in finance and why you wanted to, project your career in that field.
Yeah, for sure. So my dad was in finance, and growing up, to me, that meant absolutely nothing. That had no influence over what I wanted to do. I was more interested in politics, language, international affairs area, and that's what I came to GW in. And so what I was doing after my freshman year was working for the Organization for International Investment, which was a lobbying firm on behalf of foreign corporations. And what I ended up doing during that internship was a lot more finance analysis as opposed to policy and, political oriented work. And I really loved doing that. And I was also spending a lot of time with this group of kids from Harvard who kept talking about, how jealous they were of all their friends who were going into finance because they had all done the recruiting process so early, and life was easy for these guys. So I kind of looked into what my dad did and what I knew he'd always done, and it was funny. I was like, it's so weird that he's always talked about it. He's always tried to get me interested, and I've never been interested. And so going into sophomore year, I kind of sat there and I said, you know what, I'm going to totally change over my life. I'm going to go full blast towards this career path. And that was what I did. For the rest of sophomore year, I channeled all my energy towards the finance career path, getting a job in finance, understanding what that meant, understanding the business and what the job opportunities were there. And that's how I started.
That's great. Yeah, no, so it's definitely nice to know, feel like everyone feels like they have to choose their industry, from the time that they're in high school or something. So I think making a transition is totally within reach. So at GW, obviously you were taking classes in finance, but did you do any extracurriculars that kind of helped you learn or gain some more interest in the area?
Yeah, so a lot of what I did, just because what I'm doing now professionally is I guess niche compared to the overall finance world. On my own, I would get up every day sophomore year, 2 hours before practice, and I would just read the Wall Street Journal cover to cover, analyze financial markets on my own cover to cover, try to just kind of absorb all that information as best as I could. And then I took that personal studying, personal learning, and brought it, brought it to two groups that three actually, that I was really involved with through my time at GW. One, the Finance and Investments Club, amazing group of people who come together out of sheer interest. There's very low accountability. It's very come as you are, come if you want to. And, people just get together in that room, talk markets, talk about the economy. I was vice president of FIC my junior year, and, just a great group of people, great group of young professionals. And then the other is REFA, the Real Estate and Finance Alliance, which is very different from FIC in structure, in that when FIC is come as you are, low accountability, REFA is very high accountability and come very prepared, very selective to get into the group. But REFA essentially takes somewhere between 5 to 8 people per class from the business school into the finance track, and essentially streamlines those selected students to be a part of the Wall Street cohort of GW's alumni base. And so in REFA, you benefit from a pool of 100 alumni who are all across Wall Street in, private equity, investment banking, hedge funds, sales and trading, asset management, wealth management. And we are mentored by those alumni. We mentor each other, older students to younger students. And we have a 100% placement rate for students to go to Wall Street. And so that was instrumental in my finding a job and finding my peers who were like-minded with me.
Yeah, that's so great. I feel like so much learning takes place obviously in the classroom, but really you get to apply it kind of in these outside things. So it's important to kind of use your network to find those certain areas and get involved. So before we get into exactly how you talked about your experiences as a student athlete while, going through the recruitment process and interviewing, can you just give a super brief overview about like were your interviews mostly in person? Were they virtual? Did you have multiple rounds? Just kind of so we can gauge that.
Yeah, so back in the day, we didn't do everything virtual.
Oh, that's fun.
It's just funny, environmentally speaking. So yeah, what my interviews I think I had applied to at least 7 different banks: J.P. Morgan, Morgan Stanley, Deutsche Bank, Goldman, of course. I can't think of the rest. Bank of America, yeah, Bank of America, and I had each of them were 3 rounds. I had the first round is usually a higher view, an online interview, and then you have kind of your first round in person. So that's usually on the phone or over like a FaceTime call like this, with a one member of the bank. And then you go to the super day round. So the final round interview it's called a super day, and they take you through usually 3 20-minute interviews. Sometimes I've heard of there being 6. I've heard of there being 3 30-minute interviews, but those are usually pretty competitive, pretty technical, depending on your region and your division within the bank. But yeah, that was my process. So I super dayed for Bank of America, Deutsche Bank, and Goldman, and and Morgan Stanley, and I had a couple coming up, but I canceled those when I got my offer from Goldman.
Great. Yeah. So it's definitely like important to know it's different like from each industry to industry and company to company, but I feel like general formats tend to kind of carry over between. So thanks for giving some insight on that. All right. So just when you were interviewing, obviously this wouldn't apply to necessarily technical questions, but when they were asking you about your skills and about your background, how did you talk about your experiences being, a runner your whole life, but especially on, the GW cross country and track team? How did you make that attractive to the people that you were talking to?
Yeah, I mean, I cannot overstate how important being an athlete is to Wall Street. Investment bankers and the whole Wall Street career path, they recruit athletes intentionally. Athletes have discipline, teamwork skills, leadership skills, time management. We know how to handle conflict. We know how to bring results, and we're driven by that. So I would say, I flaunted the fact that I was an athlete as much as possible, and it was very well received. It's very rare that you are being recruited and they see that you're an athlete, or you tell them that you're an athlete, and the response isn't, "Oh, wow, really?" So I think the way the GW component plays into that and makes the athletic part of your resume even stronger is GW is unique in that we're not a school where when you're an athlete, that's all you are. At GW, I think the most unique thing about it is when you're an athlete, the fact that you're in DC and the fact that everyone around you has an internship or a job still exists. The fact that there is academic rigor still exists. And so being an athlete at GW doesn't just mean, oh, well, look at me, I'm an athlete, I'm part of a successful program. I'm also a intentional student. I'm also, an active student, a student that remains really engaged. I'm also a student that has a job or an internship, or even if I don't during the year, during the summer, I have an internship or a job. And that is really unique. And I think that just shows an additional level of capability on our part.
Yeah, I completely agree with that in all areas. I think I've had that experience where pretty much any time you say, "Oh, I'm an athlete," people are like, "Wow, like that's so great." Like we look for those skills. Are there any skills in particular you think you sold the most, or that even when you were doing, your internship at Goldman Sachs last year, and I know you just kind of started your full-time path, so that's still kind of up and coming, but are there any that you seem to use or talk about more often than others?
Yeah. One is being competitive and being a team player. It's funny how those two sometimes seem opposite, but they're kind of the same. What I noticed at Goldman last summer and through the interview process is being on a team taught me how to be a good team player. It taught me what it means to have teammates and be able to put your teammates ahead of yourself and put the we before the I. And a lot of people who don't have experience as an athlete don't understand that. And you'll experience people, peers, and even supervisors in some cases who clearly are inconsiderate or they play selfishly when that's not, what you're supposed to be doing. And people immediately look down on that. It's seen, it's very easy to discover. It comes off really, really just as a poor reflection of those people who exhibit that. And being an athlete teaches you. Everyone has experience, whether it's in high school or college or even younger than that or after college. That teammate who just doesn't understand how to put the we before the I. And when there's that person, nobody wants to work with them. They make it really difficult, and the whole team suffers and doesn't have as much success. Versus like what I've learned and what I was able to bring to the table, which is having that teamwork component and also still being extremely competitive, in the industry and at the bank, but, competitive in a healthy way. So I would say that's the main thing. And I would say the other is just leadership capability. There will come a lot of times, there did last summer for me when I was at Goldman, when you're working with a team of people on a certain project and it is difficult or awkward to, you're in a group and you have to accomplish a certain task. And it's kind of like, well, somebody has to make the first move. Somebody has to organize what we're going to do. Someone has to say, this is your role, that's your role, without being bossy, right? And being an athlete teaches you how to do that. It teaches you how to take the lead and be confident in that leadership, but also remain a team player and do so without being bossy. I would say a lot of people either fall on one side of the spectrum or the other, either the being bossy side or the kind of too in your shell or not knowing how to take the lead. So you stay quiet instead.
Perfect. Yeah, those are really great skills I think anyone can kind of use and everyone, who is an athlete has experience with. So just to kind of close it out, for student athletes now who are either applying to internships, jobs, like that sort of area, what's the biggest piece of advice you can give when going through the application process, including first just filling out the application and making your resume to, having a face-to-face or screen-to-screen nowadays interview?
Right. Okay. Two that are kind of the same thing. One is be relentless. I've seen so many great candidates apply or have a call or drop their application in an online link and they don't get a response and they take that as failure and they walk away. That is the worst thing you can do for yourself. You have to realize that there are hundreds, thousands, millions of candidates out there who want great jobs. And the people who get them are the people who don't get a response from a professional and reach out to another one, or don't get any biting back from an application or a company and keep trying with that same company, right? If we all just applied to one thing or reached out to one person or even two or three and then gave up because we didn't get any gratification for it, no one would have a job. I probably had like a 20% response rate when it came to reaching out to professionals. I probably had like a 20% response rate when it came to dropping in applications. But you can't let that get the best of you. You can't let that discourage you, because if you do, you lose. Winners really are the people who get knocked down or fall down on their own and just keep learning from it, keep bouncing back. That is how you ultimately get the job done, get the job you want, and be successful. That's how I've seen it done in every environment I've been in. That's what separates people who keep moving forward and people who drop off the block, is the people who are super, super relentless with it. And then the other thing is surround yourself with a community of people who are doing the same thing and working towards the same goals as you. Doing it alone makes it a lot harder to be relentless in that way. But when you're surrounded by people, or even just a couple people, one person who are doing the same thing, you can kind of encourage each other, build off each other, and continue to educate yourself on that, on the teamwork side, the we before I side of the job.
Perfect. That's excellent advice. Thank you so much for talking with us today, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. We'll post more videos after this, so we will see everyone soon. And thank you again, Suze.
Thanks for having me.